Welcome boys and girls from YouTube, my name is Sloth and this is a Sloth Watch. I hope you're doing fine and I really hope that you still enjoy the game as much as I do, because I have to admit that I fell in love with this game for a second time now. The new version just feels so good to me and I'm having such a great time in the last couple of days, especially just creating those different continental challenge teams, and there are so many different strategies that you can use. Some of the strongest teams right now are using a rare hero, and nearly all of those extremely strong teams using at least one epic hero as well. So there is so much to do. There are so many different strategies, and I just enjoy it so much. And I really hope that you are enjoying the game as well. You're still enjoying the game. But now let's get into this. You probably already guessed it. Once again, we're going to face an extremely important topic. We talk about the different artifacts. And as you can see, there are many different artifacts. And especially early on, it is very hard to get those artifacts because you have to pull a duplicate of your hero to get one of their souls, which you then can change for an artifact. So it is, especially for the first couple of artifacts, it is very important to choose wisely which artifact you want to choose. So this is why I made this video today. I want to rate every single artifact, and once again it's like a two-part video. In the first part I want to show you in my personal opinion, the 3 best artifacts, and in the second part I will discuss all other artifacts as well, because sooner or later you will get more and more of those duplicate souls, and then you will have access to more than 2 or 3 artifacts sooner or later. So it is just very useful for everyone out there to have a bit more in-depth look at all those different artifacts. But now let's get this started. And you probably already guessed it. The probably best and most important artifact is the Witch Remains. Now, of course, this is my personal opinion, and if you disagree, if you have some other opinions, please let me know in the comments below. As always, I'm very, very interested in your opinions. But now, yeah, my personal pick number 1, everyone should go for first, is the Witch Remains. Just because it is the only item in the game, the only way in the game to apply the defense penalty 2 debuff. And since this game is so much focused around dealing high amounts of damage, this defense penalty 2 debuff is so useful. It is crucial. It is absolutely crucial to have this artifact. Now, if you're very, very early in the game, if you don't have access to any souls yet, then of course there is the legendary version as well. It is the Crown of the Unclean, which applies also the weaker version of the defense penalty. But as soon as you have access to one of those soul imprints, you should definitely go for the Witch Remains. Now, what is the second strongest artifact? Now it already gets a little bit harder to choose. My personal opinion is the Rift Hourglass. This is such a strong item. First, it provides like nearly another 100 accuracy once it is at plus 20, which is very, very useful, especially for every single debuffer. And then it provides up to 100 skill haste. And 100 skill haste is a lot. And it helps you so much. If you have enough skill haste on your heroes, you can have their most important debuffs up for like nearly the whole fight if you have enough skill haste, and those 100 skill haste help so much. So, and it is just an item that you will see in so many different teams, and sometimes this item is even used on heroes that don't need accuracy at all, just because it provides so many skill haste. And this skill haste can be so useful. So this is why Rift Hourglass is my personal second pick. But of course, there are other opinions, and for some different accounts, maybe some other artifacts are a bit more useful early on. But generally speaking, I think your second mythical artifact should be the Rift Hourglass, just because it is overall so useful. Yeah, this is the Rift Hourglass. Now it gets even harder to choose. What is the third most important mythic artifact? Well, I would personally choose the Gatekeeper staff, because I'm a big fan of the Gatekeeper staff. Just to convert 100% of your overheal into a shield is insane, especially for heroes that focus on healing. Especially heroes that have two different skills that both heal. The Gatekeeper staff is so strong. And also, I mentioned it in many of my videos, it is the best in-slot artifact for Gyarios. And for every free-to-play player out there, Gyarios is probably one of the most used heroes. So going for their best in-slot item just helps you so much. So I remember back then, my first season of this game, like 2 years ago, I've been using a Dauntless team in combination with Gyarios for Vortex boss, and once I got access to the Gatekeeper staff for my Gyarios, the team survived like 2 or 3 minutes longer just because those big shields that he now is placing as well, additionally to his big heals, just helps your whole team to stay alive so much longer. And sometimes shields are just way more useful than heals in general, because those shields just work like an additional health bar. So instead of healing your relatively squishy heroes that don't have much HP, you just give them so much more HP, in theory. So this is why the Gatekeeper stuff is so useful on so many different heroes. And also what makes this such a strong item is that it also provides skill haste on his primary attributes. So if this is plus 20, it also provides another 60 skill haste. 60 skill haste, this is extremely strong. So this is why I personally, and all your healers, in most of the scenarios you actually use your healers with no skill timings, you just want them to heal as often as possible, as much as possible. So this is why the Gatekeeper staff just fits so good on so many different healers. This is why I would choose the Gatekeeper staff as my third item. So those are my personal top 3 picks. But of course, it depends. It depends a little bit on your playstyle. If you do not have any problems to survive, you want to squeeze out more damage, there are other, maybe better artifacts to go for after you went for the Witch Remains. So this is why now, in the second part of the video, I just want to talk about every single artifact a little bit, about 1 or 2 minutes for each artifact, just to give you an overall idea what their best use is. So now let's get this started, because there are many other artifacts as well that could have got the top 3 ranking, but this is just my personal ranking. But now let's get this started. And real quick, if you enjoy this content, if it is helpful for you, and if you agree with my list, then please consider to leave a like and a subscribe. If you do not agree with my list as well, feel free to comment below, and you also are highly invited to leave a like and subscribe as well. But now let's get into this. Sorry for keep you waiting. The Aurelium vest. This is actually also a very strong artifact. And actually, most of those mythic artifacts are very strong. So there are only a couple of artifacts that you don't need early on. Many of them are very useful. Now, the Aurelium vest. It is one of 2 artifacts that has the defense percentage substat. This is the first thing to note, and this is very valuable, because overall, in most cases, defense percent is a bit more valuable than HP percent. So this is only 1 out of 2 artifacts that provide defense percent. So this alone makes this artifact very useful. But also, it is actually only useful, or it should only be used, apart from that, on heroes that grant any form of shields. Because then, as long as the shield that they granted is up, they also provide a bit of damage reduction, up to 17.5%, which is a lot. Right now, the strongest Vortex team, the Flora team with Adolphus, every single of those Adolphus in the top 50 is using the Aurelium vest. That's because those 17.5% are so valuable. And second, this defense percentage just helps you so much to stay alive, or to keep your tank alive. And most of the scenarios, you're actually, the heroes that apply shields are also heroes that really benefit from some additional tankiness. Next, the Queen's Fan. This is an item that is this is only useful for heroes that deal derivative damage. And yesterday and the day before yesterday, I made some videos talking a little bit about damage, what damage gear, and the difference between critical hitters and derivative damage dealers. And like I said in those videos, 1 out of 4 heroes is dealing derivative damage, and those heroes really benefit from the Queen's fan. So if you have a hero that deals derivative damage, like many of the poison heroes, but also for example Premza or Ivelios, those heroes love the Queen's fan because it just provides what they want, attack and even more attack. And the heroes that I just mentioned, like Premza or Ivelios, or for example Twitch, they way in the back row, so they have always the maximum distance between them and the enemy, and then they get up to 35% bonus damage, which is crucial. This is it is a very strong item, and it is the second best in slot item for Flora as well. So of course, obviously, her best item is her mythical, her exclusive artifact. But if you do not have a copy of Flora, which is very hard to come by, let's be honest, then the Queen's fan is her second best item. Because she as well is dealing derivative damage, and she's also in the back line, so she has once again the maximum distance between her and the enemy. So the Queen's fan, extremely strong for every single derivative damage dealer. Now, next, the Dawnpipe Organ. Once again, very useful, very interesting item as well. It is also used in the strongest Vortex team right now, and as well in many other teams, because it is such a useful item, because first it pushes the attack of the wearer by a lot, up to 60% attack and 330 flat attack as well. So this adds up to about 1000, maybe sometimes even a little bit more additional attack. And then all ranged heroes in your team get up to 10% of the wearer's attack. So for example, right now all the Vortex teams, the Flora Vortex teams, are using the Dawnpipe Organ on their Eric. Because Eric, his main usage is actually his passive. He just helps to roll higher on your dice. And apart from that, he does not deal that much damage. But when he provides like 10% of his attack, it can be a lot. Especially if he has like 7 or 8,000 attack, then he provides like 700 to 800 additional attack to your Flora, which is a lot. It is like, for example, your chest that provides like 60% attack provides something around 700 attack. So it is just like one additional item on all your ranged heroes. So the Dawnpipe Organ, very useful, and very useful in many different teams. But remember, keep this in mind, it only provides attack to the ranged heroes. Not to every hero, but only to the ranged heroes. So this is the Dawnpipe Organ. Very strong, but should probably not be one of your first mythics. I would say there are at least 5 other mythical artifacts that are more important than Dawnpipe Organ, but later on, just for some min-maxing, the Dawnpipe Organ can have a huge impact on your account. Next, the Drugo's Blast Chair. Once again, a very interesting item, and it is the second item out there that has a defense percentage substat or main set. This is why I've been actually using this in some different areas of the game, but it is not that strong, and I would probably not recommend you to go for this too early. Like there are, I would say, like about 10 mythical artifacts that are more important than the Drugo's Blast Chair, because the effect is not that good. It just helps it to deal a little bit more damage every 2 seconds, and this is useful, especially if you go for some speed runs. This can have a little bit of impact, but overall it is not so strong. In my personal opinion, the best thing about this artifact is actually the defense percentage on the main stat. It can be useful, can deal some additional damage, also can be interesting, for example, for the Continental Challenge against Vaska, but it is still not that strong. So at least 10 other artifacts that are stronger than this one that you should probably prefer over the Drugo's Blast Chair. And next, let's talk about the Solar King's Horn. This is as well such a useful and strong mythical artifact. And actually, if I would not have chosen the Gatekeeper staff for my top 3, it would have been the Solar Kingshorn. And I thought for a very long time about which one I prefer for my top 3 picks. But from my personal preference, I prefer the Gatekeeper staff a little bit more. This is why he took the place number 3 in my ranking. But if not the Gatekeeper staff, then the Solar Kingshorn is as well extremely strong, and then will probably be one out of the first 5 mythical artifacts that you want to go for. It is also so strong. First, it provides HP percentage, which is very, very, very strong as well, especially on your healers, and then the artifact's effect. This is not useful on heroes like Garius, who have one big heal, but it is so strong on your healers that have continuous heals. So for example, one of the best examples is Tauren. He has his ultimate, which applies many heals when he uses his ultimate. It's like 4 seconds, and every 0.8 seconds he applies a heal. So he applies those stacks really quick, and then you have like another 15% damage increase. Some heroes like Aurelium are even better with this item, because she has a continuous heal on her battle skill and on her ultimate. So Aurelium, for example, can keep this buff up for the whole fight. So, and then for the whole fight, another 15% damage increase is very strong. So the Solar Kingshorn is as well extremely strong. I just prefer the Gatekeeper staff a little bit, because all of us have access to Garius, and it provides skill haste as well. And skill haste can be so strong. Probably the strongest stat out there. Now, take this with a grain of thought, but I think that actually skill haste is so strong, it is so impactful. Now, let's talk about the Prismatic Cloak. This is also a very interesting artifact, but it is also not recommended for you, at least if you are more of a casual or a PvE player. If you are very into PvP, then the Prismatic Cloak is very strong for you as well, because first it provides another up to 120 resistance, which is so much. It makes sometimes it just helps you to resist the enemy debuffs, which is very strong. And if you resist their incoming debuffs, then you have also 50% chance to reflect those to the source. This is so strong, especially for your healers or for your CC units as well. It can, for your control units, it can be so nice if you know that you are a little bit slower, but then you just can reflect their incoming debuffs. And, not only do you resist them, but you then can also sometimes reflect those debuffs. Is very strong, but it is definitely an item that is designed for PvP and not for PvE. So especially early on, I would suggest everyone to focus more on the PvE content than on the PvP content. So the Prismatic Cloak should not be one of your highest priorities. But of course, if you use Vitar, if you just enjoy Frost, and your most enjoyed area in the game is PvP, the arena, and the different content within the arena, then of course go for the Prismatic Cloak. You will have a lot of fun with this item. This I can promise to you. Next, Whisper of the Consumer, as well an extremely strong item. And now this is actually like the first generic DPS item out there that we talk about. And this is also, I thought about going with this item for my top 3 picks as well. But just once again, the 3 items that I mentioned, just in my personal opinion, have a bit more impact on your account. But you could also think about going for the Whisper of the Consumer very early on, because first, it also is able to provide you up to another 80% crit damage, which is so much. And it can deal those additional damage as true damage. So true damage means that it is not reduced by defense or other stats. It just always deals the exact same amount, and this is very, very strong in combination with the additional crit damage. Such a great item once again. And then it can also help you to execute the enemies. Well, also, it can be very interesting for PvP as well, and just for some other areas in the game as well. So especially for speed runs, or if you just struggle to down bosses, if you just struggle for a couple of seconds, the Whisper of the Consumer can make the difference, because this also works on bosses. If they are down to 10%, you just can execute them with your ultimate. Very fun to watch. And yeah, overall just an extremely useful item. Can be used on most of your damage dealers that want to deal critical damage. So just the easy rule, if your main damage dealer on your account is derivative damage, then go for the Queen's Fans first. For example, with Premta, if your main damage dealer is dealing critical hits, Casper or, I don't know, maybe Levanus, then go with the Whisper of the Consumer. Now, before we talk about those element specific, because now there is, actually, I think this video has 3 parts, because there are those element specific artifacts as well. But before we talk about them, let's talk about the non-specifics first, because there are 4 left. The Berserker Mask. This is, once again, I know that I'm repeating myself and I'm sorry guys, but this is also very, very interesting artifact, because it provides, once again, skill haste. And I love skill haste on artifacts, but the effect is not that strong, because it only reduces the initial recharge time. It does not reduce the overall recharge time, but only the initial recharge time. So it is more of an PvP item for some very specific cases. Apart from that, it is only about the stats, actually, the main stats. But yeah, another, I think, 60 skill haste, once again, is very, very interesting, very strong, can be very strong. But yeah, I think it is not the strongest artifact out there. And there are at least 5 up to 10 other mythical artifacts that you should go for before going for the Berserker Mask. But it is an interesting artifact just because it has those skill haste stats. Now, the Polaris Planetarium. Also very interesting, because it helps you if you are affected by control effects, but as well more of an PvP artifact. Now, of course, there are some particular areas in the game where your heroes get affected by control effects, but it is actually overall more of an PvP artifact once again. So if you are very involved into PvP, this is a very interesting item. But apart from that, I think there are other artifacts that are just way more valuable. Also, what I don't like so much about this artifact is the combination of main stats. Flat HP with attack percentage is a little bit weird to me, so this is why I don't like this artifact that much. But the effect can be very interesting, or is very interesting, and can be very useful in some specific areas in the game as well. But especially for PvP, this artifact is designed. Now, the Weird Whistle. Yeah, once again, the stats are very, very strong. And inflicting the curse is also interesting, I would say, because it can deal the true damage. And I saw many people using this artifact. It is just that I never felt that it is needed on my teams. This is the reason why I never tested this artifact. So now take this, what I'm going to tell you about the Weird Whistle, please with a grain of salt, because I did not test it yet. It is just that I always felt it is, once again, it is an offensive artifact, and I always had a feeling that the other offensive artifacts just perform a little bit better. So the mask or the fan, for example, they are both just stronger than the Weird Whistle. But it is very interesting, because especially dealing true damage, there are areas in the game where true damage is very strong, as well as, once again, the PvP area. There is those true damage stats can be very useful there. Where also true damage is extremely useful is Flametongue. But I would not suggest you to use to exchange a mythical artifact just for Flametongue, because There are options. I made a video about Fame Under and how to clear Fame Under with free-to-play heroes. So the weird whistle, it is a bit weird. No, but it is very strong, I think. But, well, yeah, just to repeat this once before we go to the next artifact. I think that the other offensive artifacts are a little bit better, so it should not be the highest priority for you as well. And the last non-elemental artifact is the Darkthorn Claw. What I really love about this artifact is that it provides crit rate. It provides up to 40% crit rate, if I'm not mistaken. And this is very, very strong. Especially if you have many good crit damage sub-rolls on your items and the crit damage glove that you want to use, but you are missing a little bit of crit rate, the Darkthorn Claw can be perfect for you. Actually, that it provides crit rate can be in some scenarios be so useful that I would use it even if you don't want or need the effect. Just because crit rate and crit damage are so important stats on your critical damage dealers. And now let's talk really quick about the effect as well. You probably already guessed it, I don't own this artifact, and the reason why I did not go for this artifact yet is because it is once again a PvP artifact. And I'm not enjoying PvP that much right now. I'm more of the PvE stuff, creating different teams. This is why I did not go for the Darkthorn Claw yet. But if you enjoy PvP, the Darkthorn Claw is perfect for you. Because in PvP, the strongest teams, or most of the strongest teams, are using some different shield heroes. For example, Veloja. Or some of them are using the Garius team with, the Gatekeeper stuff. And to counter this, and this is a hard counter to the Darkthorn Claw, just use this claw, and then you just ignore those shields. You just kill them, no matter how big those shields are. I actually also saw some retards using the Darkthorn Claw, just because it is so annoying, and if you don't pay attention, and you just bring your big shield heroes to a battle, and their main DPS unit has the Darkthorn Claw, it just melts you down, and before you can even react. So this is the Darkthorn Claw. For PvP, extremely useful. Right now for PvE, not so strong, except for the crit rate main stat. Now, that's it with the generic artifacts. Now let's talk about those element artifacts as well, real quick. I realize that I'm once again very long into the video, so maybe I have to place some cuts here and there. Real quick, let's talk about the statue of the Serpent Deity. This is one out of the 2 poison artifacts, and this means that it can only be used by poison heroes, and also that you need a poison soul in exchange for this statue. So for example, if I want to go for the Boomerang here, I only can use poison heroes, or the soul of a poison hero, to go for the Boomerang. And this is the same, this is for every element out there. If I want the Flametongue, I need to exchange a fire soul. Now let's talk about those artifacts. The statue of the Serpent Deity. Out of the 2 poison artifacts, in my opinion, this is just a better one, because it provides first proficiency, and you love proficiency on your poison heroes. And then, since you are stacking up those poison debuffs, you reach up to 30 or 40 stacks of poison. This is just insane. So the bonus only goes up to 20 stacks, but there it is like an additional 30% damage. 30% additional damage. This is so great. I've been using this artifact for a very long time on my Lothar, because in the first seasons, the old version, Lothar was my strongest unit for Vortex, and this item just goes crazy in combination with Lothar. For an example, also great on Twitch, very great on Twitch, very much fun. Second, the lantern. First, let's make this by element, so let's talk about the Boomerang next. Also, this is only for, also it provides proficiency, very nice, but this is only used for heroes that want to apply poisons on their own. So for example, this is why I've not been using this on Lothar, because he can apply poisons, but his main target is to deal damage and not apply poisons. So this is more for heroes that apply poisons, and the more poisons they apply, the better this item gets. So for example, on Vikana, this is a very interesting item, but if you have one poison soul and you want to boost your poison team, the first poison item you should go for is definitely the statue over the Boomerang. But later on, if you want to build a perfect full poison team, the Boomerang can or should be part of this team as well, because it is best in slot actually for some heroes. For example, for instance, Vikana or also for Corrin is a very interesting item. Now let's talk about the summon artifacts, the Lantern of the Dead. Now the Lantern of the Dead, many players already have the Lantern of the Dead, because actually there was a package in the first days or weeks of the season where we could buy 50 dice for 5,000 gems and just got the Lantern of the Dead as an topic, as an extra goodie. But it is the weaker of those two Necrosis artifacts in my opinion, because it is a bit more niche. You want to use this Lantern on your heroes that summon many units, and so your strongest summoning heroes actually are the heroes that only summon 1 or 2 units, and not those heroes like, for example, Aurelium, who summon many heroes. Of course, you could in theory also use this item on your Premza, but once again, Premza benefits from the Queen's Fan more than she does from the Lantern of the Dead, so this is why I think the better one of those two is the Great Demon Skull. It also provides crit rate, which is a very rare stat on your artifacts, and it just helps you in a full summon team to deal more damage. Now, place this is the second best in slot item after the exclusive artifact for Lelvanes. Give this to your Lelvanes, it helps you to get to the 100% crit rate, and since your Lelvanes is always or often in combination used with, for example, Aurelium, who is summoning many creatures and those creatures often die, so he stacks, or Aurelium helps your Lelvanes to stack the Great Demon Skull up, so then this Great Demon Skull can be very, very strong once again. Next, the Lightning faction. Here we have the Great River Lamp and the Thunder Deity's Spear. Out of those two, in my opinion, the Great River Lamp is the better one, because it just provides you this overall damage increase. And the Thunder Deity's Spear just helps you to trigger more basic attacks, which can be very strong as well, especially if you use someone like Shalta or Evelios in the team. Every single basic attack that gets triggered helps you to deal more damage, but even in those teams, the Great River Lamp is just a little bit better, in my opinion, because you can get up to 10 stacks, and every stack provides you another 3% damage increase. So just like the statue, it can give you up to a 30% damage increase, which is very, very strong. Next, the Frost artifacts. First, the Ring of Winter. Second, the Mark of the Ice Calamity. Now, for your DPS units, the Ring of Winter is just a very interesting item. Once again, it provides crit rate. I really like crit rate or crit damage on my mythical artifacts. And then you have a chance to create an ice storm that inflicts a good amount of cold damage. So for example, on your Auster, or maybe even on your Drist, this is a very, very strong item. Also, it can be used on so many of your Frost heroes, actually. All your Frost heroes, not even, it don't have to be heroes that apply Frost on their own, but they only need to be in a team with other Frost heroes. Then you can create many of those ice storms and just deal so much more damage. And if you look at the Ice faction, Ice or Frost in general is actually focused on AoE content, or is the strongest in AoE content. So this is why the Ring of Winter just fits perfectly for your Frost faction. And second, the Mark of the Ice Calamity. This is also a very interesting item, but it is the weaker version of those two. But it has a very different idea it has a very different task. As you can see, it has accuracy instead of crit, so it is actually designed for your heroes that apply frost. And sometimes in 50% of cases, it makes those frost debuffs undispellable. Hope I pronounced this at least a little bit correct. I'm very sorry, I don't know how to pronounce this. They cannot be dispelled. And then, every single time after your wearer inflicts frost, it deals more cold damage, but only up to 5 stacks, so overall up to 15% additional damage. And it is only useful for your frost heroes that want to apply frost. In my personal opinion, I like the Ring of Winter a little bit more than the Mark or the Ice Calamity. Now, let's go to the next element. Let's go to Fire. Here we have the Flametongue and the Ring of the Scarlet Sorcerer. First, the Flametongue. Actually, those two items, they are nearly the same. There is a lot of argument which of those artifacts performs better. Many of the strongest teams using the Flametongue on the Casper, but as many teams use the Ring of the Scarlet Sorcerer on the Casper. Both of them provide some additional damage, and it depends a little bit on your rolls, on your dice rolls. So these two items are very similar. The main difference, in my opinion, is the main stat. The Flametongue provides a little bit of crit rate, while the Ring of the Scarlet Sorcerer provides a little bit of crit damage. So this is the main difference when it comes to those two. Apart from that, they are relatively similar, and you can choose whatever you want. Depends a little bit on what your gear actually looks like, on the character, on the hero that you want to use the ring or the Flametongue on. And now let's talk about the last element before we finish this extremely long video. This is just an item that buffs your ultimate damage. So if the biggest amount of your damage from your rally hero comes from your ultimate, then the Flute of the King is probably better used. For example, I think Filto's biggest damage comes from his ultimate. And the Hysteria Pan Flute, first, of course, it provides crit damage, so this can make the difference between which of those two flutes you want to choose. And then it buffs you every single time that you consume rally. So there are some heroes that only consume rally when they use their ultimate. There are other rally heroes, if I'm not mistaken, that have other ways to consume rally as well. Well, if you have someone who can consume rally on his ultimate and on his battle skill, for example, then the Hysteria Pan Flute is probably a little bit better, just because then you have once again those 3 stacks of 10% damage increase. So then you have once again those 30% damage increase. So probably some of the rally heroes prefer the Pan Flute over the King's Flute. But now I think that's it. I have to apologize once again for this extremely long video, but there are so many different artifacts and so many input that I can give you when it comes to those artifacts. And yeah, this is why those videos take a little bit longer. If you have any further questions, if you disagree with something, please let me know in the comments below. I'm, as always, very, very interested in your opinions. But that's it for today's video. Thanks for tuning in, and see you in the next one.